What is up, everybody? Today we're back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about real estate investing with a very experienced real estate investor, Antonio. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm averagely experienced. We'll call myself averagely experienced. But what's up,
Averagely.
everyone? I'm Antonio. I help beginner real estate investors who don't know where to start buy their first rental property, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions you got, Brianna, about buying more rentals.
Yeah, awesome. So how many rentals do you have right now?
Well, I just got an offer accepted today. So if I close on this one, which I should, it'll be 18 units.
18 units.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a mix of duplexes, single families, or what do you focus on?
Yeah, I have one single family in Cape Coral that we're building. I have two duplexes and a triplex in New Jersey. I have one triplex in Ohio, and I have one duplex in Little Rock. And this property that I'm buying is technically a single family, but I'm converting it into a 5-unit. So it'll be my first commercial, and it'll be an Airbnb property. And I'm also looking to buy a house here in Austin to house hack, but I put in now 10 offers and nothing accepted. So we'll keep hitting the ground on that one.
Oh yeah, the markets. Have you done some over list price ones? I'm sure, and they still didn't get
Every
accepted?
offer was over list. Every offer was over list. It's just nuts.
I feel you. I offered like 45 over list, and I still didn't get it in my area.
45.
45 over list.
What was the list
and I didn't
price?
get it. 350.
Holy crap.
I know, right? They're feeling so expensive. I was being a little ambitious there. I was really stretching the budget.
Seems like you wanted it though.
Yeah, I did want it. It was really nice. But okay, cool. So you have 18 units, and you're starting Airbnb. So why are you transitioning to Airbnb?
Well, I wouldn't call it a transition. I'd call it I'm trying to get my feet wet in Airbnb. So I typically, for everyone who doesn't know, I typically buy rentals and I hold. And then I recently expanded into doing some more BRRRR, which is when you fix up the property, and that allows you to scale a lot quicker. And so the reason why with this specific property I'm looking to do Airbnb is because it's 1 block away from downtown, and there's a bed and breakfast right next to the property. So there's a successful quote unquote B&B right there. And I figured I might as well try it myself, because the rental income from, if I analyze the property, when I analyze the property as a rental, it'll only bring in $4,600 a month. But if I run it as an Airbnb, it'll bring in $15,000 a month. And so I was like, wow. Okay, I'm going to try the Airbnb. And if it doesn't work, it still cash flows as a rental property, which is great. And I'm hoping to be able to pull all my cash out. That's the goal. So it'll be a BRRRR Airbnb. Worst case, it'll be a BRRRR 5-unit rental property.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So you just weighed the pros and cons and decided what you were going to do with the property based on that.
Exactly. Like with every property that you look at, some properties are going to be better for rental. Some are going to be better for Airbnb. Some are going to be better for a BRRRR. Some are going to be better for a fix and flip. Some are going to be better for you to wholesale, right? It all depends on what you can afford to buy, what kind of financing you got, and what the rents are and what your capabilities are. And when you combine all those things and you look at it, it's a lot easier for you to be able to buy a property and determine which is the best strategy for you to go for. But if you're starting out, I recommend just focus on one of these strategies and only find properties that meet that strategy. When you start expanding, though, you have the option of exploring more strategies with the same property and see what works out best.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So tell us about your first deal and how you got into this originally.
Okay. My first deal was I bought so a little backstory. I'm originally from New York and New Jersey area my entire life. And I was living in New York City, making a decent salary as a software engineer, but everything around me was super duper duper expensive. So I was like, how the hell am I going to actually afford a property? Right. There's this like beaten down apartment in so it was a co-op. Do you know what the difference between co-op and condo is?
Yes.
Okay.
Explain.
A co-op is basically an apartment building that has a board that can basically say, we don't want you to rent here, or we do want you to rent here. Most co-ops don't allow you to rent it out. So the only property I might have been able to afford, I couldn't even buy anyway. So I was like, well, now what do I do? I was lost. I was stuck. I was overwhelmed. I was so confused. And it took 4 years of me being stuck in that position for me to finally do something. And it was actually my landlord tried to raise my rent on me 15%. I was
Oh my
freaking
gosh.
pissed. Yeah, I was so pissed. And so that was like the moment where I was like, okay, I need to be an owner, not a renter anymore. And so that's when I like went heads down and I made that my main focus. And I remembered where I went to college was a pretty good town for rentals. So I started looking at that compared to all the other cities around me, and it worked out really well. I would go look at properties every single weekend. It was about 2.5 hours away from me. So I had to bike 20 minutes to the train station, then take the train down to Trenton, then take an Uber to go check out the properties. Total is like 2.5 hours. And I would do that every weekend just to go look at properties. And I analyzed 200 properties, and then I finally got one. It was a triplex, 195 purchase price. And now I refinanced it in June for 250. Now it's probably worth like, Lord knows, I don't know, 300 because of how crazy the market is. But and it rents for 3,085. The rents are about to go up to like 3,300. So it beats the 1% rule, and it cash flows, and it's great. That was my first property.
Explain the 1% rule to those who don't know.
I'll bring out my handy dandy whiteboard.
Yeah, let's show it on the whiteboard.
So the 1% rule basically says that you need to buy a property where the rent for the property is 1% of the purchase price. And if it meets that, then the property will likely be profitable. So for example, the house that I bought had $195,000 purchase price. Can you see that all good?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. We'll label that PP. All right. The PP was 195.
Yeah.
And it was renting for, at that moment, 2,600. Okay. So when you take 2,600, which is the rent, and divide that by the purchase price, which is 195, that is greater than 1%. I'll do the math for you on my calculator. 2,600 divided by 195. That's 1.33%. Okay. And so right off of the bat, as soon as I saw this property come on the market, I knew it was going to be a good deal because the rent price was so high compared to the home price. And the reason why this rule matters is because the biggest expense for you as a landlord is your mortgage. And so if your home price is lower, your mortgage is lower. And if your mortgage is lower, then your expenses are lower. And so that allows you to have a good positive cash flow. And so right off of the bat, this property was cash flowing $1,000. And then that's, without saving anything. But when I start saving something about 500, and then now the rents are going to be they're like 700 more than what they were when I bought it 2 years ago.
Okay, that makes sense. And based on you use the 1% rule along with other things, right? That's not your only metric.
Yeah, I first use the 1% rule to do a quick analysis, and then I do a full breakdown of analyzing the property. I take all the income and I subtract all the expenses to try to come up with what I think would be a good amount of cash flow and a good amount of cash on cash return. So I usually use a minimum of 150 cash flow per month and an 8% return as a good rule for a beginner. Anything more than that means you found yourself an okay deal and you should go for it.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you break us through like a full breakdown of one of your properties, like whichever one is like your most recent one?
Yeah.
The one that you just closed on.
Well, yeah, let me I could pull up the spreadsheet to show you what the numbers are like. All right. So I'm buying this property for $250 from a wholesaler, and I'm going to put Original assumption was that I'll pay about 5% in closing costs and 15% down because I'm going to use a hard money loan. I actually have to update this interest rate for the hard money loan. It's now 9.99%. And it'll be 2 points. 2 points means about for every $100,000 you have in your loan, it's about $1,000. And so since I have 250, 2 points is $5,000. That's extra on my closing costs. My loan term is 18 months, meaning that I have 18 months to refinance out or pay down the loan. It is interest only, meaning I make interest only payments on the 250 and the rehab amount. The rehab costs is 114. I'm budgeting $20,000 over what the contractor gave me. So if worst case scenario would be that it's this price. So I already, when I'm running the numbers, I'm making sure that everything that I do is good. And I'm protecting myself. Then I'm going to refinance it and I'm going to get a 70% cash out. I could do more if I wanted to. And I can run those numbers, show you what that looks like. But the closing costs on the second loan is going to be about 5% of this number. And so the highest after repair value, because it's a 5-unit, is based off of a cap rate. And the cap rate, I'm not sure about, but it can go, the property can go as high as $730,000 based on what the cash flow is. So if they base it off of the cash flow properly, it could go as high as 730. But I'm going to run the numbers assuming that it only appraises for less, for 525,000. All right. So then my closing costs will drop to about 18,000. My loan interest rate, I'm assuming that interest rates will be a little bit higher. So I'm putting it at 5.5% by the time this is done, which I think is a fair assumption. 30-year loan, no PMI, because I'm not going to be putting less than 20% down. All right. The property taxes on the property are $5,000. Home insurance, I'm assuming is going to be about $200 per month. My repairs, because I'm just going to fix up the property right now, I'm assuming 5%. My capital expenditures, which are bigger things like roof and that kind of thing, I'm assuming 5%. And then vacancy is when someone isn't in the property, I'm going to assume 10%. Because I'm going to put this as an Airbnb, I'm putting the vacancy percentage a little bit higher.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. And then the property management will cost about 20% for Airbnb. All right.
Oh, is it higher for Airbnb?
Oh yeah, it's more than double for Airbnb.
Wow. Yeah, because typically I see like 7 to 10% on average.
Yeah. I would say 8 to 12, but in for Airbnb, I've seen as high as 40%.
Wow.
Crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got lucky. You got 20.
Yeah, it's 20s on the low end usually. And then so for my utilities, because it'll be an Airbnb, I'm going to be paying it. So $500 up front for electric, 20 for water and sewer, and then I put 100 just for miscellaneous for like Wi-Fi. That number might change. It's my first Airbnb. I'm doing my best to estimate it as great as possible. And so then now we'll go to the rent side. And I'm estimating about $15,753. The way I got this was I looked at each unit individually and I looked at what the nightly rate could be. And I multiplied that by the percent that it'll be occupied for each unit. And I extrapolated that over the year. And so on average, it's saying it'll bring in about $15,753 per month. But when you subtract out my mortgage, my taxes, my insurance on the property, and all these expenses, I'm going to end up with $5,944 per month cash flow. Now, what I could do is if I need more money out, I could increase this to 80% cash out refinance, which means I take out 10% more equity. And then I pull out $35,000 on top of the money that I started with. So I'll get all my cash back plus $35,000. And I will have $5,646 in cash flow per month with 107% ROI.
And you're doing all this with a hard money loan.
Doing this with a hard money loan, not in the state that I live in. It's in Little Rock. I'm doing it far away without me doing the work. I may go visit the property to get some footage, but
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So explain how somebody like that's awesome. But how can somebody's like who's getting into this, how can they feel like they would be able to do that? Because you're doing it against like you're not even in the area. You don't have to get a conventional loan. You're doing it like an unconventional way, or just a more technical way that most people think of like an FHA loan or just a conventional. So how would someone completely new do what you're doing?
Yeah. So like if we're gonna look at it right now, like the level that I'm at, I'm doing a Burr Airbnb. Okay. But where I started at, and we'll call this out of state Burr and Airbnb, right? That is a very complex scenario. And it's 5 units plus.
Yeah, it's huge.
But what I started out with was a 3 unit, and it was just a rental. So only one real strategy. Burr is like 2 strategies combined. Then when you throw in Airbnb, it's like 3. 3 unit with a regular conventional mortgage of 25% down. And I did it, even though it was out of state from where I lived, it was drivable distance. So I'd have to take a flight to go get there. So it was a place that I could visit if I needed to. So I did it somewhat close by. So you see the level of where I started. And then, then my second property, I did with it was a 2 unit rental. But what I did differently was the financing. Instead of 25% down, I did a cash out refi with a partnership with my dad to pull cash out of his house to use it to buy this. And I did that for my second and third properties. So once I learned how to do that, I then replicated that. I built on top of that. And then I did a Burr. The property after that was an out of state, like far away. It was in Ohio, out of state rental, bought with a cash out refi. And then once I did that, then I did a Burr out of state with 2 unit with cash out refi and hard money. So you see how I kind of like layered one new thing each time I went. That was the goal. And that's why I recommend you start here and you work your way up to where I'm at now. I don't think I would have been able to do this when I started off.
Okay, so yeah, this isn't the ideal first timer situation of what you're doing right now.
No, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you knew how to do it, it's a great deal for your first deal. Don't get me wrong. But hypothetically, we don't know how it'll turn out. But from what the numbers are, yeah.
Yeah, the numbers make sense right now. Okay.
Yeah.
So your suggestion is to start with a basic rental with a conventional or FHA. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, conventional FHA, just go down the well-worn path, the path that a lot of people have done that's really simple and less complicated. As a beginner, you want to reduce complication and make it as easy as possible for you to start. That's why I started this way. And then I built one layer on top of it with the cash out refi. Then I built a layer on top of it with the out of state. Then I built a layer on top of it with hard money and fixing up the property. Then I built with a Airbnb in 5 unit, like one step at a time, just increasing the difficulty. It's like if you go to the gym and you're trying to squat, right? You don't just throw on three plates like it's nobody's business. You start with the bar, and then you work up from the bar to 1 plate, and then you work up to 2 plates, and you work up to 3 plates over time. Doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, it's not overnight. Okay, that makes sense. So most people, I'm trying to think of a realistic number, and I think realistically, a lot of people may have 10 grand saved. They saved up their first 10 grand. What would you suggest is possible? What are the things that you can accomplish with 10 grand?
With 10 grand, you could either buy a really cheap property out of state and fix it up, or you could house hack somewhere nearby you and try to get the sellers to pay your closing costs. Those are the two ways that you could really get by. Or third route, I guess, is if you had another friend who had 10 grand and you partner together to buy a property.
What do you think is the ideal amount to get? Because I've saved up more than I was able to save up 50 grand, like working and just making it happen. But I know most people, they don't see themselves being able to save that much. What is the ideal amount that you think someone could get started with and like not have to like be super picky and struggle so much? Like,
Yeah, I
with what
talk
amount?
about having like 20,000, 25,000 would be a good starting point for a lot of markets around the US. You could buy houses cheaper than that, but it would still be out of state, or you would buy nearby and house hack. Those would be the two real main options. If you really want to have like, free reign to buy wherever you want, I'd say save up to 100 grand. But by the time you save there, it'll take forever. So I just recommend you start small and start with 20 if you can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 20 grand. Yeah. It's because I feel like most people, they don't know what number they need to start, because it's kind of thrown in the air.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. So you'd say start with 20 grand, get a duplex. So what do you think is a good starting path for people to, because I feel most people can't just go out and buy a duplex and be like, okay, I got it. I understand this. What are some tips or first timer things that you could say to aid somebody in actually going and doing that?
First thing is make sure to pick a strategy that aligns with your goals. So if you are someone that wants to invest in real estate for the cash flow, for the passive income down the line, make sure you're picking a strategy that allows you to do that. So house hacking or buying for rentals, let's say, right? For example, then you want to pick a location that's based on data that allows you to pick the best place for you, not the best place for someone else, but the best place for you. That means what factors are you okay with? Are you okay with an area that has more crime? If that's the case, you'll open up more options to you. But if you're not okay with that, what factors are you willing to give up to find an area that is still cash flow positive? Then you got to find a lender. Once you find a lender, you get pre-approved. And then it's just a matter of you looking at properties every single day and analyzing them, taking the income, which is the rent, and subtracting all the expenses, just like I showed you earlier, and figuring out what is the best way for you to get started. Or sorry, figuring out what the best property is for you to get started. What I was telling you was the best way to get started.
Okay.
Long day,
Okay.
long day.
No, I gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Well, I think that's a good start on how someone can get started with real estate investing, how much money they need, where they need to look, like to start, like they need to figure out a strategy. They need to start easy and then level up. So do you have any final tips or thoughts that you could provide to a viewer before we sign off?
Yeah, usually if you're overwhelmed or stuck, it's because you're taking on too many things and trying to get too many things done. And so what I'd recommend to you is if you feel like you're stuck, go back to the basics. What are you trying to accomplish? And then go through it. Okay, do I have a strategy? Check. Do I have a location? Check. Do I have financing? Like, do I have the money to get it? Did I get a loan? Check. And then fourth, am I analyzing properties? It comes down to those four things. And if you get those four things straight, you're good. Don't worry about everything else. They'll come in time.
Okay, awesome. Well, you guys be sure to subscribe to Antonio and be sure to subscribe to this channel because it is scientifically proven that when you subscribe, your net worth goes up.
That's what happened to me. When I subscribed, my net worth went up too.
That's how it goes.